We will definitely
But
have
wait, we
more for
didn't
you.
talk about. Have we been talking for an hour already? Because we didn't talk about the black market negative tests. I feel like that's kind of crazy. We don't have to talk
Oh,
about
you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Yes, the black market thing. So
it.
whenever there's prohibition, whenever there is, I don't know, laws which require people to, if they don't do X, then they can't get Y. Whenever that comes up throughout history, black markets pop up, right? They popped up when it came to the prohibition of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
They've been around with drugs. We know that. Women have been using black markets for years on uh, you know, pregnancy tests and ultrasounds,
Body parts, kidneys.
body parts. Shannon's totally right. Body parts, getting extra hands, kidneys, and spleens and stuff. So this should have been obvious, but still, when I read it, I couldn't believe what I was reading. Couldn't believe it because it didn't come into my consciousness that a black market would emerge related to the coronavirus, more specifically, the coronavirus prevention methods.
I didn't know that it was a real thing. I didn't believe it when I was looking at it. I was like, this is something that people are doing. But whatever. The more I thought about it, the more that it resonated with me that this is very believable. It is.
Well, it's not that it's just believable. It is also the fact that it is more complicated than these are some selfish bastards trying to game the system.
Which is the mindset I had when I first read it.
Shannon immediately went to these people don't care about people's health. What's wrong with them? They're selfish. I had that first urge as well, but then when I thought about it, I thought this is a lot more complicated than my knee-jerk reaction would lead me to believe. And so apparently there's a black market for negative COVID-19 tests that's popped up across the globe as more countries require travelers to prove their negative status before entering. And so in France, 7 people were arrested last week for allegedly hawking doctored coronavirus tests at Charles de Gaulle, whatever that's called, International Airport. The AP reported. The suspects who were not identified were charging up to $360 for the fake test. And so in various locations, and this is true in America as well, where, for example, in New York State, if you come to New York State from one of the hot zones, you have to quarantine for a couple of days, and they're not just taking your word for it. I believe what they do is they get your contact information, and if you have like an iPhone, they FaceTime you at random times, right, to see if you are in your house. They do that. They also send people by your house randomly to check and see if you're home as well.
Wait, who does this?
New York State.
They do?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They are not playing with y'all.
I thought we were still talking about France. Wow, I didn't know that they did that here.
Yep, they are not playing in New York State. If you come to New York State from any of the hot zones in the country, you have to quarantine for 14 days, and they will check on you randomly, whether that be via FaceTime on your iPhone and ask for you to show.
What if you left New York State and came back? Are they doing that to you too?
Yeah, you left.
They didn't do that to my brother when he came back from LA. I wish they did though.
He used a plane?
Huh? Yeah.
When was this?
When was he gone? I want to say August.
Oh, then you're not doing your neighborly. You're not doing your citizen duties, Shannon.
What am I supposed to do?
You're supposed to call the number and tell them about your brother. But you ain't gonna do that. So now we go down that
I gotta snitch on my own brother.
That's right. Hey man, sacrifices have to be made. But now that once I read this article, I was like, this is so obvious. Like, no doubt people are doing this, but it never even crossed my mind that this would happen. And it begins to show you kind of the limits that you can go to when it comes to lockdowns and quarantine mandates and things of that nature, because with technology, there's always going to be a way for somebody to try and get around certain lockdowns, right? Even if this didn't exist, right? Somebody might have wanted to take a plane into New York City, but then they heard the Cuomo's orders about quarantine, and so instead they just fly near New York City and then drive into New York City. It's a lot harder to quarantine somebody that drove into your city. Shannon froze.
Yeah.